nobody tells you this when you're young, the world does not reward effort the way you think it does. That sentence alone has the power to change the next 20 years of your life. Because somewhere along the way, someone convinced you that if you worked hard enough, stayed loyal enough, sacrificed enough, and waited long enough, wealth would eventually arrive at your door like a guest who finally found your address. But wealth doesn't work that way. And if you've spent years feeling exhausted despite doing everything you were told to do, this audiobook may explain why. You were taught how to earn. You were never taught how to own. You were taught how to follow systems. You were never taught how to build them. You were taught how to trade time. You were never taught how to multiply it. And that is where this journey begins. Not with money, not with investments, not with business, but with a realization so simple that most people miss it for their entire lives. The person who controls cash flow controls freedom. The person who understands systems controls outcomes. The person who learns how money moves stops chasing it. And in this audiobook, you are about to discover exactly why. Over the next chapters, we will explore the hidden psychology of wealth creation, the difference between income and ownership, the silent traps that keep intelligent people financially trapped, and the practical mental frameworks used by people who build wealth without becoming slaves to it. This audiobook is educational and motivational in nature. It is not financial advice. It is something far more important, a change in perspective. And perspective changes destiny. Here is the idea I want you to carry into every chapter that follows. The moment your money can work without your presence, your life begins to change. Not completely, not instantly, but permanently. And before we go further, make a quiet agreement with yourself. Listen with an open mind, because some of what you are about to hear may challenge beliefs you've carried for decades. Good. Growth usually begins where comfort ends. Now, let's begin. There is a strange moment that happens to millions of people, a moment nobody talks about. It often arrives late at night. The house is quiet, the notifications have stopped, the distractions are gone, and for a few minutes there is nowhere to run. Only thought, only truth, only the conversation between who you are and who you could become. And during those moments, a question appears. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly. Is this really it? Not because life is terrible, not because you're failing, but because something deep inside you senses there must be another way. You work, you earn, you spend, you repeat. Years pass. Technology changes. Governments change. Markets change. Entire industries appear and disappear. Yet your financial reality remains tied to the same fragile equation. If you stop working, income stops. If income stops, pressure begins. And once you see this clearly, something uncomfortable happens. You realize that what you believed was security may actually be dependency. That realization is not meant to discourage you. It's meant to awaken you, because awareness always comes before transformation. A man in Singapore spends 15 years climbing the corporate ladder. A woman in Toronto builds a respected career. A father in Brazil works overtime every week. A programmer in Germany earns more money than he ever imagined. Different countries, different lives, different stories. Yet many of them experience the same hidden anxiety. What happens if this stops? What happens if I get sick? What happens if the company changes? What happens if the economy shifts? What happens if the paycheck disappears? The fear isn't about money. The fear is about dependence. And dependence creates vulnerability. That is why cash flow matters. Not because money is everything, but because freedom requires options, and options require cash flow. The average person spends years trying to increase income. The extraordinary person spends years trying to increase independence. Those sound similar. They are not. One focuses on making more. The other focuses on needing less effort to maintain more. One chases bigger paychecks. The other builds stronger systems. One is running faster on the treadmill. The other is looking for the exit. This is where the title of this audiobook begins to reveal its deeper meaning. Cheat the system, not through dishonesty, not through shortcuts, not through manipulation, but by understanding rules most people never notice. The greatest financial advantage in the modern world is not intelligence, it is awareness. Because once you understand how wealth actually grows, you stop playing games designed for endless participation. Think about that. A casino does not become wealthy because it wins every bet. It becomes wealthy because the system favors the house. A streaming platform does not become valuable because one customer watches one movie. It becomes valuable because the system repeats. A software company does not become powerful because it sells once. It becomes powerful because customers continue paying. Systems, repetition, cash flow, not isolated effort. And yet most people spend their entire lives depending on isolated effort. They become highly skilled at producing value, but never learn how to capture value repeatedly. That distinction changes everything, because there comes a point where effort alone becomes a trap. Not because effort is bad. Effort is essential, but effort without leverage creates limits. There are only so many hours, only so much energy, only so much attention. Eventually, every human being collides with the reality of finite capacity. The question becomes simple. Can your results continue growing when your effort cannot? The wealthy ask this question constantly. Most people never ask it at all. They simply work harder and harder and harder until exhaustion becomes normal, until burnout becomes expected, until survival becomes routine. But what if the answer was not more effort? What if the answer was better structure? Picture two individuals. Both wake up at 6. Both work diligently. Both possess talent. Both care deeply about their future. The first spends 10 years earning. The second spends 10 years building. At first, their lives look almost identical. Then something fascinating happens. The builder begins creating assets. Small at first, almost invisible. A digital product, a content library, a small investment portfolio, a business system, a network, processes, knowledge, ownership. Years later, the difference becomes dramatic, because while one person is still selling time, the other has accumulated engines, and engines change lives. An engine is anything that continues creating value after the initial effort has been invested. That idea sounds simple. It is not. It is revolutionary. Because once you understand engines, you stop viewing your time as something to spend. You begin viewing it as something to invest. There is a difference, a massive difference. When you spend time, it disappears. When you invest time, it can continue producing results long after the moment is gone. This is how ordinary people create extraordinary outcomes, not through luck, not through secrets, not through magic, but through compounding. The most misunderstood force in wealth creation is not money. It is accumulation. Tiny improvements, repeated. Tiny systems, repeated. tiny assets. Repeated. Tiny advantages. Repeated. Most people underestimate what repetition can do because results arrive slowly, at first, then suddenly. The tree spends years invisible before anyone notices its height. The river carves stone without making headlines, and wealth often follows the same pattern, silent, gradual, unremarkable, until one day everyone asks where it came from. If this message resonates with you, remember this moment, because years from now you may realize that wealth was never about chasing money. It was about learning how to think differently about value. And I'd genuinely love to know where you're listening from and what your biggest financial goal is right now. Sometimes declaring a goal gives it weight. Now, before we move forward, there is one dangerous belief we must dismantle, a belief so common that entire generations have built their lives around it, a belief that sounds responsible, a belief that sounds safe, a belief that quietly keeps millions trapped. That belief is this: more income automatically solves financial problems. In the next chapter, we're going to expose why some people earn more every year and still feel broke, why lifestyle inflation silently steals freedom, and why mastering cash flow has far less to do with earning and far more to do with control. Because what you're about to discover next may completely change the way you see money forever. Hey there, we want to remind you that we often choose topics suggested by you, our viewers, in the comments. In the comments, you can suggest a topic or ask a question about what you'd like to see in our video. We read every comment carefully, so we promise not to miss a single one. Thank you. Let's keep going. Chapter 2. The fastest way to feel rich is to increase your income. The fastest way to become rich is to increase your control. Those two paths look identical at the beginning. That is why so many people spend years walking in the wrong direction. There is a story that repeats itself across cities, countries, and generations. Someone earns their first significant raise. They celebrate. They upgrade their apartment. A better car follows, then a few subscriptions, more dining out, more convenience, more comfort. Nothing extreme, nothing irresponsible, just small upgrades, reasonable upgrades, deserved upgrades, and yet something strange happens. 6 months later, their financial stress feels almost exactly the same. The numbers changed. The feeling did not. Because the human mind adapts faster than most people realize, what once felt luxurious becomes normal. What once felt exciting becomes expected. What once felt like abundance becomes the new baseline. This phenomenon quietly reshapes entire lives, not because people are careless, but because they misunderstand the relationship between income and freedom. More income can improve life, but only if freedom grows faster than expenses. That is the hidden equation. Not income, freedom. A person earning $50,000 a year while owning their time may be wealthier in practical terms than someone earning $500,000 while trapped inside endless obligations. Because wealth is not measured only by what comes in. It is measured by what remains. Time remains. Attention remains. Choice remains. Peace remains. And most importantly, options remain. The modern world encourages consumption at every turn. Every screen offers an upgrade. Every advertisement presents a new desire. Every platform is designed to make enough feel insufficient. You are not fighting a battle against spending. You are fighting a battle against manufactured dissatisfaction. That battle is rarely discussed, yet it shapes almost every financial outcome. A man buys a watch. Nothing wrong with that. A woman upgrades her phone. Nothing wrong with that either. Another person renovates their home. Again, perfectly reasonable. The problem is not the purchase. The problem is when identity becomes attached to consumption, when buying becomes emotional, when spending becomes validation, when ownership becomes performance. Because once money becomes tied to self-worth, financial decisions stop being logical. They become psychological, and psychology always wins. That is why two people with identical incomes can experience completely different futures. One uses money to strengthen freedom. The other uses money to impress strangers. One accumulates options. The other accumulates obligations. One sleeps peacefully. The other earns more every year and somehow worries more every year. The difference is not intelligence. It is awareness. The wealthiest mindset is often surprisingly quiet. It does not scream. It does not compete. It does not desperately seek recognition. Because real wealth has very little interest in appearing wealthy. Think about that carefully. The truly powerful rarely need to announce their power. The truly confident rarely need to advertise confidence. The truly wealthy rarely need to convince anyone they are wealthy. The louder the display, the more likely insecurity is hiding underneath. This is why financial maturity often looks boring from the outside. While others chase appearances, mature builders chase leverage. While others seek applause, builders seek assets. While others spend their gains, builders reinvest them. Not because they are obsessed with money, because they understand something deeper. Every dollar has the ability to become an employee. Most people spend their employees. Builders hire them. Imagine every dollar entering your life carrying a question. What job would you like me to perform? Most people answer unconsciously. They send it away immediately. The dollar leaves. Its work is finished. But builders think differently. They ask whether this dollar can help create future dollars, whether it can buy knowledge, whether it can buy skills, whether it can strengthen a system, whether it can become an asset, whether it can increase future freedom. That shift sounds small. It is enormous. Because once money becomes a tool rather than a reward, behavior changes. Patience increases. Decisions improve. Impulses weaken. Vision expands. The future begins influencing the present. And this is where many people misunderstand wealth creation. They imagine dramatic breakthroughs, massive opportunities, life-changing deals, sudden success. Sometimes those things happen. But most lasting wealth is built through ordinary decisions repeated consistently. Quiet decisions, uncelebrated decisions, invisible decisions. The decision to learn instead of consume. The decision to build instead of entertain. The decision to invest instead of impress. The decision to think long-term in a culture addicted to short-term rewards. Those decisions rarely feel exciting in the moment, yet they create extraordinary outcomes over time. A farmer understands this instinctively. Seeds do not become harvests overnight. The farmer does not dig them up every week to check progress. The farmer trusts the process, waters the soil, protects the field, remains patient. Wealth creation follows a similar rhythm. The challenge is that modern culture rewards immediacy. Everything arrives instantly. Messages, entertainment, food, information. The brain becomes conditioned to expect rapid rewards. Then people encounter wealth building, and wealth building refuses to cooperate. It moves slowly. At first, very slowly. So slowly that many quit. And that is where the opportunity exists. Because most people cannot tolerate delayed gratification. Most people abandon the path before the results become visible. Most people stop one chapter before the breakthrough, one season before the harvest, 1 year before the compounding becomes obvious. And that is why patience has become a competitive advantage, not because patience is glamorous, because it is rare. A young entrepreneur launches a project. Nothing happens. 3 months pass, 6 months pass, a year passes. Friends question the effort. Family members express concern. Doubt arrives, fear arrives, comparison arrives, and this is where many dreams die. Not because the idea was wrong, because uncertainty felt unbearable. Yet nearly every meaningful achievement requires a period where results remain invisible, a period where faith must carry you further than evidence, not blind faith, disciplined faith, the kind of faith built through action, the kind that says, I may not see the outcome yet, but I know the process is sound. That mindset changes everything, because eventually the invisible becomes visible. The roots become branches. The branches become fruit. And people who never saw the planting suddenly notice the harvest. What they do not see are the years of preparation, the lonely mornings, the difficult choices, the sacrifices, the uncertainty, the restraint. This is why wealth creation is ultimately an inner game before it becomes an outer result. Money amplifies identity. It does not create it. Someone who lacks discipline with a little money often lacks discipline with a lot of money. Someone who lacks direction with a small opportunity often lacks direction with a larger opportunity. The habits come first. The outcomes come later. And one of the most valuable habits you can develop is learning to separate appearance from reality. Appearance says wealth is what people see. Reality says wealth is what people do not see. Appearance is the car. Reality is the cash flow. Appearance is the vacation. Reality is the asset producing the income. Appearance is the lifestyle. Reality is the system supporting it. Never confuse the display for the engine, because the engine is where freedom lives. If this idea resonates with you, consider leaving a comment sharing the biggest financial lesson life has taught you so far. Sometimes a lesson learned through experience becomes wisdom for someone else. Now, there is another misconception we need to confront, a dangerous one. Many people believe wealth begins when they find the perfect opportunity, the perfect business, the perfect investment, the perfect market, the perfect timing. But the truth is far less exciting and far more powerful. Wealth rarely begins with opportunity. It begins with awareness. And in the next chapter, we're going to uncover the hidden asset most people ignore every single day, the one resource that determines whether every future opportunity becomes a breakthrough or a missed chance. Because before you build wealth outside yourself, you must first discover the asset already living within you, and that asset is worth more than most people ever realize. Chapter 3, the greatest asset you will ever own cannot be bought. It cannot be inherited. It cannot be transferred. It cannot be stolen unless you willingly surrender it. And most people undervalue it for years. That asset is your ability to create value, not your job title, not your salary, not your possessions, your ability to solve problems, your ability to learn, your ability to adapt, your ability to think. Because every form of wealth begins there. Before every company existed, it was an idea. Before every investment produced a return, someone recognized an opportunity. Before every asset generated income, someone created value first. And in a world changing faster than ever before, the ability to create value has become one of the most important forms of capital. Look around. Entire industries have transformed within a decade. Technology reshapes careers. Artificial intelligence changes workflows. New platforms emerge. Old business models disappear. The rules keep moving. Yet one thing remains constant. People who know how to create value continue finding opportunities regardless of the environment around them. This is why some individuals seem capable of rebuilding again and again. A business fails, they recover. A market changes, they adapt. A job disappears, they evolve. Because their confidence is not attached to a specific opportunity. It is attached to their ability to create new ones. That distinction is powerful. Most people seek security in external circumstances. Builders seek security in internal capability. One approach depends on conditions. The other depends on growth. Imagine two individuals facing the same economic downturn. One panics immediately because their confidence was attached to a paycheck. The other feels concern, certainly, but remains grounded because they trust their ability to learn, adapt, and generate value. Who possesses the stronger foundation? The answer becomes obvious, and this is where many financial conversations miss the point. People obsess over tactics while ignoring capacity. They search for shortcuts while neglecting development. They want better results without becoming a better version of themselves. Yet wealth creation has always rewarded personal evolution. The market pays for value. The world rewards usefulness. Opportunities gravitate toward people who consistently solve meaningful problems. Think about every highly compensated profession, every successful entrepreneur, every influential creator, every respected leader. At the core of their success is the same principle. They became exceptionally valuable, not overnight, not magically, gradually, through study, through experience, through mistakes, through repetition, through discipline. And that brings us to an uncomfortable truth. Your future income is often a reflection of your current value, not your worth as a human being, your value in the marketplace. Those are not the same thing. Your worth is infinite. Your market value is adjustable. And once you understand that difference, growth becomes exciting rather than intimidating. Because if value can be developed, then your future can be developed too. A young woman spends 1 hour every evening learning a skill. At first, nothing changes. Her income remains the same. Her circumstances remain the same. Her life appears identical from the outside. Months pass, then years. Eventually, opportunities begin appearing that did not exist before, not because the world suddenly became fair, because she became different. Her knowledge expanded, her perspective expanded, her capability expanded, and expanded capability attracts expanded opportunity. This is one of the hidden laws of wealth creation. Opportunity often arrives disguised as preparation. People see successful outcomes and assume luck. They rarely see the years spent becoming capable enough to recognize those opportunities. The opportunity was always there. The awareness was not. And awareness changes everything. Consider how differently two people can walk through the same city. One notices only traffic. The other notices business ideas. One notices only buildings. The other notices inefficiencies. One notices only problems. The other notices solutions waiting to be created. The city did not change. The observer changed. And wealth creation frequently begins with perception. The ability to see value where others see inconvenience. The ability to see potential where others see obstacles. the ability to see systems where others see isolated events. This is why reading matters, why learning matters, why curiosity matters. Because every new idea expands your ability to recognize possibilities. And possibilities are the raw material of wealth, not money. Possibilities. Money follows value. Value follows understanding. Understanding follows learning. That chain is worth remembering, especially today. Because modern distractions are incredibly sophisticated, never before in human history have so many forces competed for your attention. Notifications, endless scrolling, constant stimulation, infinite entertainment. Every moment spent consuming is a moment not spent creating. And while rest is important, there is a profound difference between intentional recovery and unconscious distraction. One restores energy, the other drains potential. The challenge is that distraction feels productive, it feels harmless. 5 minutes becomes 30. 30 becomes 2 hours, 2 hours become years. Slowly, almost invisibly, life slips away. Not through dramatic mistakes, through small leaks. And wealth often leaks the same way. Tiny purchases, tiny distractions, tiny compromises, tiny delays, each insignificant alone, powerful in accumulation. That is why awareness matters so much, because awareness allows you to see patterns before they become outcomes. A person rarely becomes financially trapped overnight. The trap is built gradually, one decision at a time, one habit at a time, one overlooked detail at a time. But the reverse is also true. Financial freedom is often built gradually, one skill at a time, one asset at a time, one system at a time, one disciplined choice at a time. The direction compounds, not just the actions. Direction is everything. Imagine boarding a plane that is only a few degrees off course. At takeoff, the difference appears insignificant. Hours later, the destination is completely different. Life works similarly. Small shifts in thinking create massive differences over time. A small improvement in financial habits, a small improvement in learning, small improvement in focus, a small improvement in discipline. Years later, the outcomes barely resemble the starting point. This is why the people who achieve extraordinary results often appear ordinary while they are building them. Their daily actions do not seem dramatic. The drama exists in the accumulation, in the consistency, in the refusal to abandon the process. There is a phrase worth carrying forward. The future rewards what the present repeats. Read that again in your mind. The future rewards what the present repeats, not what the present intends, not what the present dreams about, not what the present announces, what the present repeats. That is why habits matter more than motivation. Motivation comes and goes. Habits remain. Motivation is emotional. Habits are structural. And wealth loves structure. Structure creates consistency. Consistency creates momentum. Momentum creates outcomes. The people who appear disciplined are often simply structured. They remove unnecessary decisions. They create routines. They automate good behavior. They reduce friction. They make success easier to repeat. And repetition is where power lives. If this audiobook is helping you see money differently, consider subscribing or saving it for future listening, not because of an algorithm, because some lessons reveal deeper meaning the second time you hear them. Now, there is another shift waiting ahead, a shift that separates consumers from builders, employees from owners, followers from architects. Because once you understand your ability to create value, a new question emerges. How do you transform that value into systems that continue producing long after today's effort is finished? That question changes everything. And in the next chapter, we will enter one of the most important ideas in the entire audiobook: the difference between earning money once and creating something that keeps paying long after the work is done. Because this is where true wealth begins to reveal its architecture. And once you see it, you will never look at work the same way again. We'd also like to remind you that we have a private members community on our channel. All members can vote on the topic of the next video, have priority in the comment section, and most importantly, gain access to exclusive videos and lessons covering the most relevant topics and information specific to this month. Thank you. Let's keep moving forward. Chapter 4. The difference between a financial struggle and financial freedom is often hidden inside a single question. Do you get paid for what you do? Or do you get paid for what you have built? At first, the distinction feels subtle. Then it becomes life-changing, because there comes a moment when every ambitious person encounters a ceiling, a limit, a boundary created by time itself. You can only work so many hours. You can only attend so many meetings. You can only handle so many clients. You can only exchange so much energy before the body demands rest. Time is the ultimate currency because it is the one resource nobody can replenish. Not billionaires, not governments, not geniuses. Nobody. And yet most people spend their entire lives selling fragments of that currency without ever asking a deeper question. Can today's effort continue creating value tomorrow? That question sits at the heart of wealth creation. A musician writes a song. Years later, the song still generates income. A writer creates a book. The book continues reaching people long after it is published. A business owner develops a system. The system keeps operating while they sleep. A software developer creates a tool. Users continue benefiting from it for years. Notice what happened. The initial effort ended. The value continued. That is the magic of assets. Assets are stored effort. Assets are preserved value. Assets are yesterday's work helping tomorrow's life. And once you understand this, your relationship with work begins to change. You stop asking only, how much will this pay me today? You begin asking, can this continue paying me later? The second question is where builders live. Employees often think in transactions. Builders think in systems. Transactions create immediate results. Systems create lasting results. Neither is inherently wrong. Every system begins with transactions. But problems arise when a person never graduates beyond them. Imagine spending 20 years carrying buckets of water from a river. Every day requires effort. Every day requires presence. Every day requires time. Now imagine spending some of that time building a pipeline. The pipeline takes longer to create. It requires patience. It requires planning. It may initially feel less rewarding. But eventually the water flows whether you are carrying buckets or not. Most people remain busy carrying buckets because building pipelines feels slower. That is one of the greatest ironies of life. People sacrifice decades avoiding the inconvenience of investing a few years. And because they avoid short-term discomfort, they inherit long-term dependence. Builders reverse that equation. They accept short-term sacrifice to create long-term freedom. Not because they enjoy difficulty, because they understand leverage. Leverage is one of the most powerful concepts in the world. A lever allows a small force to move a large object. Financial leverage follows the same principle. The goal is not endless effort. The goal is amplified effort. one action creating multiple outcomes, one decision producing ongoing benefits, one system multiplying results. Think about technology. One creator records a lesson. Thousands of people watch it. One entrepreneur builds a platform. Millions of users benefit. One designer creates a template. It is purchased repeatedly. Leverage allows human effort to extend beyond human limitations, and we are living in an age where leverage has never been more accessible. A person with a laptop can reach audiences once available only to media corporations. A small business can serve customers around the world. A creator can build intellectual property that continues generating value for years. The opportunities exist. The challenge is mindset, because many people still think like workers even when opportunities to build are sitting directly in front of them. They ask, how much can I earn? Builders ask, what can I create? They ask, what can I own? What can I improve? What can I build once and benefit from many times? Those questions lead to entirely different lives. And before you misunderstand this message, let us make something clear. There is dignity in work. There is honor in effort. There is nothing wrong with employment. The issue is not employment. The issue is dependence. The issue is having only one source of support, only one stream, only one pillar holding up your future. Nature teaches this lesson constantly. Strong ecosystems possess diversity, multiple routes, multiple pathways, multiple sources of resilience. Financially successful people often operate similarly, not necessarily through dozens of businesses, but through multiple forms of value, skills, investments, relationships, knowledge, assets, systems, each strengthening the whole. This creates something money alone cannot buy. Confidence, not arrogance, not ego. Confidence. The quiet confidence that comes from knowing your future is not attached to a single outcome. The confidence that comes from options. Options reduce fear. Fear clouds judgment, and clouded judgment destroys opportunity. That is why building assets is not only a financial strategy, it is an emotional strategy. Every additional stream of value creates psychological breathing room. You think more clearly. You negotiate more effectively. You make better decisions. You stop acting from desperation. Desperation is expensive. People accept bad opportunities when they feel trapped. People remain in unhealthy situations when they feel trapped. People tolerate conditions they should outgrow because they feel trapped. Freedom begins the moment options appear, and options often begin with assets, not huge assets, small ones. The first asset rarely changes your life. The first asset changes your thinking. That is more important. A small investment teaches ownership. A small project teaches leverage. A small business teaches systems. A small audience teaches communication. A small success teaches possibility. Possibility is powerful, because once the mind sees a new reality, it becomes difficult to return to old limitations. There is a moment that many builders experience, a moment invisible to everyone else. The first time value arrives without immediate effort. Maybe it is a royalty payment. Maybe it is a dividend. Maybe it is a digital sale. Maybe it is income generated by something created months earlier. The amount is often insignificant. The lesson is not, because in that moment, the mind realizes something profound. Effort and reward do not always have to occur simultaneously. The seed and the harvest can exist in different seasons. That realization changes behavior. Suddenly, patience becomes easier. Long-term thinking becomes easier. Building becomes easier. not because the work disappeared, because the purpose became visible, and visibility fuels persistence. One of the greatest mistakes people make is believing that wealth creation requires giant moves. It usually doesn't. It requires consistent moves. The giant outcomes are often the result of accumulated consistency. A single brick does not create a house. A single workout does not transform a body. A single day does not create mastery. But repeated actions eventually produce extraordinary structures. This is why wealth often feels boring before it feels exciting. The foundation is repetition. The foundation is patience. The foundation is discipline. And discipline is not punishment. Discipline is remembering what you want most instead of what you want now. That sentence is worth carrying with you. Discipline is remembering what you want most instead of what you want now. The wealthy understand delayed gratification, not because they enjoy waiting, because they understand multiplication. They know that sacrificing one option can create 10 future options. That temporary restraint can create permanent freedom. That saying no today sometimes means saying yes to a far greater future. If a line from this chapter resonates with you, share it with someone building something meaningful in their own life. Sometimes a single perspective can save years of confusion. Now we arrive at a deeper layer of the journey, because assets are powerful, systems are powerful, leverage is powerful, but there is an invisible enemy capable of destroying all of them. An enemy responsible for more financial failure than lack of opportunity, more financial failure than lack of intelligence, more financial failure than bad luck. That enemy lives inside the mind. And in the next chapter, we will expose the emotional patterns that silently sabotage wealth creation before it ever has a chance to grow. Because mastering money begins with mastering yourself. And this next lesson may be the most important one yet. Chapter 5. The most expensive mistakes in life rarely happen in public. They happen in private. Inside thoughts, inside emotions, inside moments nobody else can see. A person can understand investing and still lose money. Understand business and still fail. Understand opportunity and still stay stuck. Because knowledge alone is never enough. The mind must be capable of carrying what the knowledge creates. And that is where many financial journeys collapse. Not because people lack information, because they lose the emotional battle. Fear, impatience, comparison, ego. These forces have destroyed more wealth than recessions ever could. A person studies an investment for months. The market drops unexpectedly. Fear arrives. Logic leaves. A business owner builds patiently for years. Someone else succeeds faster. Comparison arrives. Focus leaves. An entrepreneur experiences initial success. Ego arrives. Humility leaves. Patterns repeat. Again and again. Across generations. Across industries. Across every level of income. Because wealth is not only a financial game, it is a psychological game, and psychology always comes first. Think about fear. Fear is not inherently bad. Fear protects. Fear warns. Fear keeps human beings alive. But fear becomes dangerous when it controls decisions rather than informing them. The frightened investor sells at the worst moment. The frightened entrepreneur never starts. The frightened employee never develops new skills. The frightened dreamer never acts. Fear whispers convincing stories. What if you fail? What if you lose money? What if people judge you? What if it doesn't work? And because the future is invisible, Those questions feel real. Yet something fascinating happens when you study successful people across different fields. They are not fearless. They simply learned how to move despite fear. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is action despite uncertainty. That distinction matters because waiting for confidence before taking action often means waiting forever. Confidence usually arrives after action, not before. A child learns to walk by falling. An athlete learns through mistakes. An entrepreneur learns through failure. A leader learns through responsibility. Growth rarely asks for certainty. Growth asks for participation. And participation requires courage. Now, consider comparison. Comparison has become one of the defining challenges of modern life. Never before have human beings had access to so many carefully edited versions of other people's lives. Every day you can see someone earning more, traveling more, achieving more, owning more, displaying more, and if you are not careful, comparison quietly poisons gratitude, it steals momentum, it distorts reality. Because comparison rarely tells the full story. You see someone's success. You do not see their sacrifices. You see the result. You do not see the process. You see the harvest. You do not see the years spent planting seeds. Comparison is dangerous because it distracts you from your own path. And wealth creation requires focus. A tree does not grow faster because it envies another tree. A river does not reach the ocean by comparing itself to another river. Nature understands something humans often forget. Growth is individual. The goal is not to become someone else. The goal is to become more fully yourself. That applies financially as much as personally. Your journey will not look like anyone else's. Your timeline will not match theirs. Your opportunities will differ. Your challenges will differ. Your strengths will differ. And that is perfectly fine. Because wealth is not a race. It is a construction project. You are building something unique, something personal, something designed around your values. And values matter more than many people realize. Money magnifies values. It does not create them. Someone generous with little often remains generous with much. Someone reckless with little often becomes more reckless with much. Money amplifies character. That is why character development is not separate from wealth creation. It is part of wealth creation. Integrity matters. Discipline matters. Patience matters. Humility matters. These qualities may not appear on a financial statement, yet they influence nearly every financial outcome. Humility, for example, is one of the most underrated wealth-building traits. The humble person continues learning. The arrogant person believes they already know enough. One grows. The other stagnates. The market has a way of exposing arrogance. Eventually, reality arrives. Reality always arrives, and reality is indifferent to ego. That is why lifelong learners often outperform temporary experts. The learner adapts. The expert defends outdated assumptions. In a rapidly changing world, adaptability becomes a form of wealth. Think about the last decade alone. Entire industries transformed. Artificial intelligence emerged as a major force. Remote work expanded. New opportunities appeared. Old assumptions disappeared. Those who adapted gained advantages. Those who resisted often struggled. The lesson is simple. Flexibility creates resilience. Resilience creates longevity. Longevity creates opportunity. Opportunity creates wealth. Now let's talk about impatience. Perhaps the most dangerous emotional force of all. because impatience attacks exactly when progress is beginning to work. The gym becomes difficult before results appear. Learning feels frustrating before mastery appears. Business feels uncertain before momentum appears. Investing feels slow before compounding appears. And many people quit during the invisible phase, the phase where growth is occurring beneath the surface, the phase where foundations are being built, the phase where outcomes have not yet become obvious. This is why patience is not passive. Patience is active trust. Patience is continuing despite incomplete evidence. Patience is showing up before rewards arrive. The bamboo tree provides a beautiful metaphor. For years, almost nothing visible happens. Roots spread beneath the ground. Preparation occurs unseen, then growth accelerates dramatically. Observers focus on the rapid growth. They overlook the years of invisible preparation that made it possible. Human success often follows a similar pattern. The world celebrates breakthroughs. The breakthrough is usually the smallest part of the story. The preparation created the breakthrough. The repetition created the breakthrough. The persistence created the breakthrough, and persistence requires emotional mastery. The ability to continue when motivation fades, because motivation will fade. Every person listening to this audiobook will experience days of doubt, days of fatigue, days of uncertainty, days when the future feels distant. That is normal. Those moments do not define you. Your response defines you. A person becomes powerful when they stop expecting every day to feel inspiring and start building systems that carry them through uninspiring days. This is why routines matter, why habits matter, why structure matters. Because structure protects progress from emotion. Emotion changes. Structure remains. And wealth loves consistency more than intensity. 1,000 disciplined actions usually outperform a handful of dramatic actions. This applies everywhere. Finances, health, relationships, learning, business, life rewards repetition, not occasional brilliance. Steady effort compounds. There is another truth worth remembering. The goal is not perfection. Perfection is an illusion. Perfection often becomes procrastination wearing a sophisticated disguise. The goal is progress. Small progress. Repeated progress. Sustainable progress. Because small improvements accumulate, and accumulation changes lives. 1% better, repeated long enough, becomes transformation. If this lesson resonates with you, take a moment to reflect on one emotional habit that has cost you the most growth. Fear, impatience, comparison, self-doubt. Awareness is often the first step toward freedom. Now, we are approaching a powerful turning point in this audiobook, because once you begin mastering your emotions, a new challenge emerges. A challenge hidden in plain sight. Most people think wealth is created by making money. It isn't. Money is only the beginning. The real challenge begins after money arrives, because the next question becomes far more important. Can you keep it? Can you grow it? Can you direct it intentionally, or will it quietly disappear? In the next chapter, we will uncover one of the greatest secrets of lasting wealth. Why cash flow is not about accumulation, it's about movement. Because understanding how money flows may completely transform how you see every dollar that enters your life. And that lesson changes everything. Dear viewer, share your success story. Even if it is small, it can motivate other people to visit the comment section and read it, and it can inspire them. Also, don't be shy about asking questions and perhaps Someone with more experience or someone who has been through this will share the answer. Remember, it is only through communication that people become stronger and better. Thank you. Chapter 6. Money was never designed to sit still. The moment you understand that, an entirely new world begins to reveal itself. Most people look at money as an object, something to possess, something to collect, something to hold. But money behaves more like energy than possession. It moves, it flows, it changes direction, it responds to systems. And the people who master wealth learn to think about flow instead of accumulation. That may sound like a small distinction. It is not, because accumulation creates a mindset of storage. Flow creates a mindset of design. A lake with no movement eventually becomes stagnant. A river remains alive because it moves. Financial life works in remarkably similar ways. Money enters, money leaves, money returns, money multiplies, money circulates. The question is never whether money moves. The question is whether you control its direction. Most people don't. Their finances operate like a series of reactions. A bill arrives, a purchase happens, an expense appears, a paycheck enters. The cycle repeats. There is movement, but there is little intentional design. Builders think differently. They create pathways before money arrives. They decide where it goes, what it does, what role it serves, what future purpose it supports. They give money instructions. That is one of the most important habits in wealth creation. Every dollar needs a mission, because money without direction tends to disappear. And disappearing money creates confusion. Confusion creates stress. Stress creates poor decisions. Poor decisions create financial instability. The cycle feeds itself, but intentionality breaks the cycle. Imagine receiving a paycheck. One person sees spending power, another sees opportunity. One sees consumption, the other sees allocation. One asks, "What can I buy?" The other asks, "What can I build?" The same amount of money, entirely different futures. This is why wealth creation is often invisible at the beginning. The external lifestyle may look nearly identical. The internal decisions are completely different. Builders are constantly allocating resources toward future outcomes, not because they refuse to enjoy life, because they understand the relationship between present sacrifice and future freedom. There is a phrase that deserves attention. Every financial decision is a vote for a future version of yourself. Think about that. Every purchase, every investment, every skill acquired, every hour spent learning, every hour wasted. Each one casts a vote. The question is simple. Who are you voting for? The person you are becoming, or the person you are trying to outgrow? That question changes behavior, because wealth is not merely about money. It is about alignment, aligning today's actions with tomorrow's goals. And alignment creates momentum. One of the greatest financial traps is unconscious spending. Not reckless spending, unconscious spending. The spending that occurs automatically, emotionally, habitually, without reflection. A difficult day creates a purchase. Stress creates a subscription. Boredom creates consumption. Loneliness creates unnecessary spending. The transaction appears financial. The root cause is emotional. This is why emotional intelligence matters so much in wealth creation. Money often flows where emotions direct it. Someone who feels insecure may spend to appear successful. Someone who feels uncertain may spend to feel temporary control. Someone who feels empty may spend hoping to create fulfillment. But fulfillment rarely arrives through consumption. Because consumption solves temporary feelings. It rarely solves deeper needs. That realization can save years of frustration. The wealthiest people often understand something simple. Not everything valuable can be purchased. Peace cannot be purchased. Purpose cannot be purchased. Meaning cannot be purchased. Strong relationships cannot be purchased. Health cannot be purchased once neglected for too long. Money is powerful, but money is a tool, and tools become dangerous when they are mistaken for destinations. The destination is freedom. The destination is choice. The destination is the ability to spend your life intentionally. Money simply helps create that possibility. There is another misunderstanding that keeps many people trapped. They assume cash flow is only about income. It is not. Cash flow is about movement. A person earning a large income with poor control can experience constant pressure. Another person earning less but directing money intelligently can experience increasing freedom. The difference is flow. The difference is structure. The difference is design. Think about a business. Revenue matters. But successful businesses obsess over cash flow. Why? Because timing matters, direction matters, efficiency matters, movement matters. Individuals should think similarly, not obsessively, not fearfully, intentionally, because awareness creates power. Power creates options. Options create freedom. There is something deeply calming about knowing where your money is going, not because you are controlling every detail, because clarity reduces uncertainty, and uncertainty is exhausting. Many people carry financial stress not because their situation is hopeless, but because their situation is unclear. Clarity often creates solutions. The numbers become visible. The patterns become visible. The opportunities become visible. And visibility changes everything. Imagine driving through a storm. The road is difficult enough. Now imagine driving through the same storm with a completely fogged windshield. The challenge multiplies. Financial confusion operates the same way. The goal is not perfection. The goal is visibility. Visibility allows adjustment. Adjustment creates improvement. Improvement creates momentum. Momentum creates confidence. Confidence creates action. And action changes lives. There is another powerful idea hidden inside cash flow. Speed matters. Not speed in the sense of rushing. Speed in the sense of circulation. The faster value moves productively through systems, the greater the opportunity for growth. Think about knowledge. Knowledge that remains unused has limited value. Knowledge applied creates results. Money behaves similarly. Money directed toward productive outcomes creates possibilities. The key word is productive. Not all movement creates growth. A spinning wheel moves constantly, yet goes nowhere. Activity alone means very little. Intentional activity means everything. This is why some people remain busy for decades without meaningful progress. They confuse motion with advancement. The two are not the same. True progress requires direction, and direction requires vision. Vision answers a simple question: where are you actually trying to go? That question sounds obvious, yet many people never answer it clearly. They want more money. Why? They want success. Why? They want freedom. What does freedom mean? Without clarity, effort scatters. With clarity, effort concentrates. Concentrated effort creates extraordinary outcomes. Sunlight warms. A focused laser cuts steel. The difference is concentration. Your attention works the same way. Your money works the same way. Your life works the same way. There comes a point where wealth creation becomes less about acquiring and more about directing, less about earning and more about allocating, less about hustle and more about wisdom. Wisdom grows through experience, through observation, through reflection, through mistakes. And mistakes are part of the journey. Every builder makes them. Every investor makes them. Every entrepreneur makes them. The goal is not avoiding mistakes. The goal is learning faster than the mistakes can damage your future. That mindset removes fear. Because fear of imperfection stops many people from beginning. Yet every expert was once inexperienced. Every master was once uncertain. Every successful builder was once a beginner. The difference was action, consistent action, thoughtful action, repeated action. If this chapter has shifted your perspective, remember one sentence. Money flows toward structure. Chaos repels it. Structure attracts it. That principle applies to finances, businesses, relationships, and life itself. Now, we are ready to enter a chapter that very few people fully understand. A chapter about time, not time management, not productivity. Something deeper, because there is one asset more valuable than money, more valuable than opportunity, and more valuable than talent. An asset every wealthy person learns to protect. An asset every struggling person unknowingly spends. And once you understand its true value, you will never look at your days the same way again. Because the next chapter is about the hidden currency behind all wealth. And most people are giving it away for free. Chapter 7. The richest people in the world do not own more money than everyone else. They own more leverage over time. That is the secret hiding beneath nearly every fortune ever built. Because money lost can be recovered. A failed business can be rebuilt. A market crash can eventually reverse. But time obeys no negotiations. Once spent, it never returns. And yet, people give it away every day as though it has no value. They spend hours on arguments that change nothing, hours consuming information they never apply, hours living according to other people's expectations, hours postponing dreams they secretly know matter. Years pass. Then one day a realization arrives, not dramatic, not loud, just painfully clear. Life is shorter than it appeared, and suddenly the question changes. It is no longer, how can I make more money? It becomes, how can I spend more of my life doing what matters? That question sits at the center of true wealth, because the purpose of wealth is not accumulation. The purpose of wealth is freedom of choice, freedom over your days, freedom over your attention, freedom over your energy, freedom over your future. Think about the moments people treasure most. A parent watching their child grow, a conversation with someone they love, a peaceful morning, a meaningful project, a journey, a memory. None of those experiences are fundamentally about money. They are about time. Money only matters because of what it can protect, create, and unlock. And the highest use of money is often buying back time, not wasting it, buying it back. Imagine two individuals. The first spends decades earning more and more money, but never gains control over their schedule. The second spends years building systems that gradually create flexibility. Who is wealthier? The answer becomes obvious. Because freedom is not measured by income alone, it is measured by ownership of your life. This is where many people accidentally trap themselves. They achieve financial success, then build lifestyles that require even more success to maintain. They earn more. Their obligations expand. They earn even more. Their responsibilities expand further. Soon they discover something shocking. They have become highly compensated prisoners. The cage is luxurious. It is still a cage. Now, contrast that with a different path. A person intentionally designs life around freedom. They ask unusual questions. How much is enough? What truly matters? Which expenses create genuine value? Which expenses simply create appearances? Where does fulfillment actually come from? These questions rarely appear in traditional financial conversations. Yet, they may be more important than any investment strategy. Because if you never define enough, enough never arrives. The horizon keeps moving, the target keeps shifting, the race never ends. And endless races create exhaustion. There is an old idea worth revisiting. The person who needs the least often possesses the greatest freedom. Not because ambition is bad, not because achievement is wrong, because dependence creates vulnerability. When happiness depends on constant upgrades, happiness becomes fragile. When identity depends on external validation, identity becomes fragile. When peace depends on circumstances remaining perfect, peace becomes fragile. Builders understand resilience. They understand that strength comes from foundations, not decorations, not appearances. Foundations. The foundation of wealth is not income. It is capability. The foundation of freedom is not luxury. It is flexibility. The foundation of fulfillment is not consumption. It is purpose. These truths become increasingly valuable as life progresses. A young professional in London may chase promotions. A founder in Mumbai may chase growth. An investor in New York may chase returns. Nothing wrong with any of these pursuits. The question is whether the pursuit serves life, or whether life becomes sacrificed to the pursuit. Because eventually, every person encounters a moment where achievement alone is no longer enough. Meaning becomes important. Contribution becomes important. Legacy becomes important. The conversation deepens. The goals mature. The motivations evolve. And that evolution reveals another layer of wealth creation. Real wealth is not merely about what you accumulate. It is about what you create for others. Think about the businesses that thrive, the creators who succeed, the leaders who endure. At their core, they solve problems. They improve lives. They create value. The marketplace rewards value creation because value creation improves the world. The more meaningful the problem solved, the greater the opportunity often becomes. This is why selfish approaches to wealth usually reach limits. Eventually, the market asks a simple question: who benefits from your success? The strongest wealth-building models create mutual benefit. Customers benefit, communities benefit, employees benefit, owners benefit, everyone wins. That is sustainable growth, and sustainability matters. Because temporary success and lasting success are not the same thing. Temporary success often relies on intensity. Lasting success relies on systems. Temporary success burns energy. Lasting success manages energy. Temporary success chases opportunities. Lasting success builds foundations. Foundations matter because life is unpredictable. There will be setbacks, unexpected expenses, economic changes, personal challenges, moments when plans fail. The goal is not creating a life without difficulty. The goal is creating enough resilience to withstand difficulty. Resilience is a form of wealth. Health is a form of wealth. Strong relationships are a form of wealth. A calm mind is a form of wealth. A useful skill is a form of wealth. A trusted reputation is a form of wealth. Money amplifies all of them, but money alone cannot replace them. This is why truly successful people often become increasingly protective of their attention. Attention is where life happens. Whatever receives attention grows. Businesses grow, skills grow, relationships grow, problems grow, anxiety grows, confidence grows. The direction depends on focus. And focus has become one of the rarest resources in modern life. Every platform wants it. Every notification wants it. Every advertisement wants it. Every distraction wants it. Your attention has become one of the most valuable assets you own. Yet most people protect their money more carefully than they protect their attention. Think about that. They will analyze a small purchase for hours, then casually surrender entire evenings to meaningless distraction. They protect dollars. They waste years. Builders reverse the equation. They protect attention first, because attention directs action. Action creates outcomes. Outcomes shape life. There is a reason extraordinary individuals often appear selective. Selective about commitments, selective about relationships, selective about projects, selective about information. It is not arrogance. It is awareness. They understand that every yes requires a no somewhere else. Every commitment carries opportunity costs. Every hour invested in one thing is unavailable for another. This awareness creates intentional living. Intentional living creates momentum. Momentum creates progress. And progress creates confidence. Confidence built through evidence, not fantasy, not motivation. Evidence. The evidence of showing up. The evidence of building. The evidence of becoming. That is real confidence. And it cannot be taken away easily because it was earned. If a sentence from this chapter resonates deeply, share it in the comments. Sometimes the lesson that changes your life is the lesson another person desperately needs to hear today. Now, we are approaching one of the most dangerous traps on the journey toward wealth, a trap that catches intelligent people, hard-working people, ambitious people, people who genuinely want better lives. It is the trap of believing that more information automatically creates more success. But information is not the same as transformation. Knowledge alone changes very little. Applied knowledge changes everything. And in the next chapter, we are going to uncover why action is the true currency of growth, why so many people remain stuck despite knowing exactly what they should do, and how to build a life where execution becomes your greatest competitive advantage. Because knowing the path is never enough. You must learn how to walk it. Dear viewers, write which city you're from. It's interesting to see which corners of the world are watching our videos. Chapter 8. There is a painful truth that many people spend years avoiding. Knowing is easy, doing is rare. The modern world has created an unusual problem. Information is everywhere. Wisdom is scarce. You can learn almost anything. Watch tutorials, read books, listen to podcasts, study experts, consume endless advice, and yet millions remain stuck. Not because they lack knowledge, because they never convert knowledge into action. They collect information the way some people collect souvenirs, always gathering, rarely applying. And without application, knowledge becomes entertainment, not transformation. Think about how many times you've known exactly what needed to be done. Improve health, save money, learn a skill, start a project, have a difficult conversation, take the first step. The challenge was rarely understanding. The challenge was acting. That is where wealth creation separates dreamers from builders. Dreamers wait for certainty. Builders move with incomplete information. Dreamers seek perfect conditions. Builders create momentum despite imperfect conditions. Dreamers ask, what if it fails? Builders ask, what if it works? Neither group possesses guarantees. The difference is execution. Execution creates evidence. Evidence creates confidence. Confidence creates larger actions. And larger actions create larger outcomes. Momentum begins small, very small, smaller than most people imagine. A single decision, a single hour, a single commitment, a single promise kept. That is how transformation usually starts. Not with dramatic breakthroughs, with tiny acts of integrity repeated consistently. Integrity is often misunderstood. People think integrity is only about honesty with others. True integrity begins with honesty toward yourself, keeping promises to yourself, following through when nobody is watching, doing what you said you would do, especially when motivation disappears, because motivation is unreliable. It arrives unexpectedly, leaves unexpectedly, changes constantly. Discipline is different. Discipline is a system. Discipline says, I act according to my standards, not my feelings. That mindset changes lives. A person who relies entirely on feelings becomes unpredictable. A person guided by standards becomes powerful. Not because life becomes easier, because consistency becomes possible. Imagine two individuals attempting to build wealth. One works only when inspired, the other works according to a system. Months pass, years pass. The difference becomes extraordinary, not because the second person was more talented, because consistency compounds. Compounding is not limited to money. Skills compound, confidence compounds, reputation compounds, relationships compound, knowledge compounds, discipline compounds. The challenge is that compounding often feels invisible while it is happening. A person studies 1 hour each day. Nothing dramatic occurs. Weeks pass. Still nothing dramatic. Months pass. Progress becomes noticeable. Years pass. The results appear remarkable. Observers call it talent. They missed the repetition. This is why patience and action must work together. Action without patience creates frustration. Patience without action creates stagnation. Together, they create progress. There is a fascinating pattern among highly successful people. They often appear unusually calm, not because they have fewer problems, because they understand process. They trust process. They know results often arrive later than expected, but they also know results eventually reveal the quality of the process. The farmer does not panic every morning because crops are not fully grown. The athlete does not expect mastery after one workout. The builder does not expect a skyscraper after laying a single brick. Yet many people approach wealth differently. They expect immediate evidence, immediate validation, immediate rewards. And when those rewards fail to arrive, they abandon the process. The process was working. Their expectations were not. One of the most powerful shifts you could make is learning to fall in love with building, not the applause, not the outcome, the building itself. Because outcomes are delayed. Building happens today. A creator publishes content before an audience exists. A founder develops systems before customers arrive. An investor contributes before returns appear. A student learns before opportunities emerge. The common thread is clear. The work comes first. The rewards follow. That order cannot be reversed. Many people secretly try to reverse it. They want confidence before action, results before effort, recognition before contribution. Life rarely works that way. Contribution comes first. Value comes first. Service comes first, then opportunities begin appearing. And opportunity often arrives quietly, not with fireworks, not with announcements. Quietly, a conversation, a connection, an idea, a partnership, a chance encounter, a small opening. Most breakthroughs begin as small openings. The problem is that distracted people often miss them, because opportunity rarely shouts, it whispers. This is why attention remains such a valuable asset. The attentive person notices patterns, notices needs, notices inefficiencies, notices possibilities. Others see inconvenience. Builders see opportunity. Others see obstacles. Builders see information. Others see failure. Builders see feedback. Perspective changes everything, and perspective can be trained. Consider setbacks. Most people fear them. Builders study them, not because setbacks feel pleasant, because setbacks contain data. Every mistake teaches something. Every failure reveals something. Every disappointment offers information. The lesson may be painful. It remains valuable. A failed project teaches execution. A lost investment teaches risk management. A difficult partnership teaches discernment. A missed opportunity teaches awareness. Nothing is wasted when lessons are extracted. This mindset creates resilience. And resilience is one of the greatest advantages in wealth creation. Because life guarantees uncertainty. Markets change, technology changes, industries change, circumstances change. The person who adapts survives. The person who learns thrives. The person who persists eventually finds openings invisible to those who quit. Persistence is not glamorous, it is powerful, and power often looks ordinary while it is growing. There is another hidden truth about action. Small actions reduce fear. People often believe they must eliminate fear before acting. The opposite is usually true. Action reduces fear. Movement creates clarity. Progress creates confidence. Experience reduces uncertainty. The first step is often the hardest because imagination magnifies risk. Reality is usually less terrifying than imagination. That is why beginning matters so much. The first sale, the first investment, the first project, the first client, the first attempt, the first uncomfortable conversation. The first step breaks the illusion that progress is impossible. And once the illusion breaks, a new future becomes visible. If this audiobook has encouraged you to take action on something you've delayed, remember this moment. One action today can alter the trajectory of years, not because action is magical, because direction compounds. Now we arrive at another critical lesson. You have learned about value, about systems, about assets, about attention, about execution. But there is still one force capable of accelerating everything, a force more powerful than talent, more powerful than intelligence, more powerful than starting capital, a force hiding in plain sight, relationships, because nobody builds anything meaningful entirely alone. And the next chapter may completely transform how you think about people, opportunity, and the true architecture of lasting wealth. Chapter 9. One conversation can change a life. Not because words are magical, because perspective is contagious. Every person you spend time with is influencing your expectations, your standards, your thinking, and ultimately your future. That may sound obvious. Yet few people fully appreciate how deeply environment shapes outcomes. A seed placed in fertile soil grows differently than a seed placed in stone. Potential matters. Environment matters too. And nowhere is this more visible than in wealth creation. Many people spend years searching for better opportunities while remaining surrounded by influences that quietly limit them. Not toxic influences, simply limiting influences. People who have accepted smaller possibilities, people who normalize excuses, people who explain away ambition, people who confuse dreaming with foolishness, people who have settled so deeply into comfort that growth appears threatening. It is difficult to build an extraordinary future while constantly absorbing ordinary expectations. This does not mean abandoning people. It means becoming aware of influence. Because influence operates whether you notice it or not. Listen carefully to the conversations around you. What dominates them? Complaints, gossip, fear, blame, or ideas? Growth, solutions, possibilities? The quality of conversations often predicts the quality of futures. People talk about what occupies their minds, and minds shape lives. One of the fastest ways to accelerate growth is to spend time around people who expand your perspective. Not necessarily wealthy people, not necessarily famous people, people who think differently, people who challenge assumptions, people who ask better questions, people who are building something, people who take responsibility, people who create instead of complain. Their influence becomes invisible education. You begin thinking differently without realizing it. Your standards rise, your vision expands, your excuses weaken, and slowly your actions begin changing. That is the power of environment. There is an old observation worth remembering. You rarely outperform your expectations for long, and expectations are heavily influenced by the people around you. If everyone in your circle believes success is impossible, success feels impossible. If everyone believes growth is normal, growth begins feeling normal. The world itself does not change. The mental framework changes. And frameworks shape behavior. This is why mentors matter, books matter, communities matter, conversations matter, because every meaningful transformation begins internally before becoming visible externally. Sometimes a single sentence creates that shift, a sentence heard at exactly the right moment, a perspective that suddenly reveals a new possibility. Think about your own life. There were probably moments when one conversation altered your direction. One teacher, one friend, one idea, one book, one piece of advice. The opportunity existed before. The awareness arrived later. That is how growth often works. Awareness comes first. Action follows. Results emerge. There is another dimension to relationships that many people overlook. Trust. Trust has enormous economic value. People often think wealth is built only through money. In reality, trust is one of the most valuable currencies on earth. Businesses run on trust. Partnerships run on trust. Leadership runs on trust. Communities run on trust. Relationships run on trust. When trust exists, opportunities multiply. When trust disappears, opportunities shrink. A person with a strong reputation often receives opportunities unavailable to someone with greater talent but weaker character, because reliability compounds, integrity compounds, consistency compounds. People remember, not always consciously, but they remember. They remember who follows through, who keeps promises, who takes responsibility, who creates value, who can be counted on when circumstances become difficult. Character creates opportunities that credentials alone cannot unlock. This is one reason wealth creation should never be separated from personal development. The two are connected. The stronger your character becomes, the stronger your foundation becomes. And foundations matter, especially during adversity, because adversity reveals truth. When things go well, almost anyone appears confident. When conditions become difficult, reality emerges. Pressure reveals preparation. Pressure reveals habits. Pressure reveals character. That is why challenges often become turning points, not because challenges are enjoyable, because they reveal what needs strengthening. A difficult business situation reveals leadership gaps. A financial setback reveals planning gaps. A personal disappointment reveals emotional gaps. Awareness creates improvement. Improvement creates resilience. Resilience creates long-term success. Long-term success creates freedom. Everything connects. There is also a powerful lesson hidden inside generosity. Many people assume wealth creation and generosity exist in tension. The opposite is often true. The most valuable opportunities frequently emerge from helping others. Not strategically, not manipulatively, genuinely. Creating value for people creates relationships. Relationships create trust. Trust creates opportunities. Opportunities create growth. The sequence repeats. This is why some of the most successful individuals focus obsessively on contribution. They understand a simple principle. Value flows toward value. The more value you create, the more opportunities tend to appear. Not instantly, not always predictably, but consistently over time. A business owner solves problems for customers. A creator helps an audience. A teacher helps students. A leader helps a team. The specific form changes. The principle remains. Contribution creates momentum, and momentum attracts opportunity. Now let's discuss networking, not the artificial version, not collecting contacts, not exchanging business cards. Real networking, the kind built through authentic relationships, the kind built through curiosity, the kind built through shared growth. Real networking is simply becoming someone worth knowing, someone who contributes, someone who learns, someone who helps, someone who follows through, someone whose presence improves situations. People naturally gravitate toward value, and value extends far beyond money. Energy is valuable, insight is valuable, reliability is valuable, encouragement is valuable, perspective is valuable. Every person listening to this audiobook already possesses something valuable to offer. The challenge is recognizing it, then developing it, then sharing it. Because hidden value benefits no one, not the world, not your future, not you. One of the most powerful questions you can ask yourself is this: how can I become more useful? Not more impressive, not more important, more useful. Usefulness creates opportunities. Opportunities create growth. Growth creates wealth. That question has transformed countless lives because it shifts attention away from entitlement and toward contribution. Contribution is empowering. You control it. You can learn more, improve more, serve more, create more, grow more, and growth is always available. There is another truth worth remembering. No one succeeds entirely alone. Every achievement rests upon support. Teachers, mentors, partners, family, friends, communities, customers, teams. The myth of the self-made individual is exactly that, a myth. We all build with help. The wise recognize it. The grateful appreciate it. The successful never forget it. If these audiobooks have helped you in any way, supporting the channel through listening, sharing, commenting, or subscribing genuinely helps us continue creating meaningful content for people around the world. And to everyone listening, thank you. Now, we are about to enter a chapter that many people avoid, not because it lacks importance, because it demands honesty, radical honesty. The chapter about excuses. The invisible stories people tell themselves that quietly delay dreams, postpone action, and prevent growth. Because wealth creation is not only about what you build, it is also about what you stop believing. And some beliefs have been costing people decades without them ever realizing it. Chapter 10. The most dangerous prison has no walls, no locks, no guards, no chains, yet millions of people live inside it every day. The prison is made of stories. Stories repeated so often they begin to feel like truth. Stories that sound reasonable. Stories that sound practical. Stories that sound responsible. And because they sound so convincing, they quietly shape entire lives. I'll start when I'm ready. I need more time. I need more money. I need better conditions. I'm not experienced enough. People like me don't succeed. It's too late. The market is too crowded. The economy is too difficult. The words change. The outcome remains the same. Delay, years pass. Potential remains trapped. Dreams remain postponed. Opportunities pass unnoticed. Not because success was impossible, because excuses sounded believable. Now, let's be clear. There is a difference between a legitimate obstacle and an excuse. Obstacles are real. Excuses are interpretations. Obstacles require solutions. Excuses require awareness. A person may genuinely lack resources. That is an obstacle. Believing they can never succeed because of that obstacle becomes an excuse. The distinction matters because one creates action, the other creates surrender. Wealth creation begins the moment responsibility becomes stronger than excuses, not perfection. Responsibility, the willingness to say, this is where I am. This is what I have. This is what I can do next. That mindset is powerful because it restores control. Excuses remove control. Responsibility restores it. Think about how often people give away their power without realizing it. They blame the economy. They blame timing. They blame competitors. They blame circumstances. Sometimes those factors matter, but focusing exclusively on them creates helplessness because you cannot control them. Builders focus on controllables, skills, habits, knowledge, execution, relationships, attitude, learning, adaptation. The list is long, and every item on that list creates leverage. Imagine two people facing identical circumstances. One spends years explaining why success is difficult. The other spends years searching for solutions. Who do you think reaches a different destination? The answer is obvious. Yet people underestimate the power of perspective. Perspective determines where energy flows. Energy determines action. Action determines outcomes. Everything begins with interpretation. This is why personal responsibility is so liberating. At first it feels heavy. Then it becomes freedom. Because responsibility says my future is not guaranteed. But it is influenceable, and influence is enough. One of the most common excuses sounds intelligent, it sounds careful, it sounds reasonable. It is this: I need more information before I begin. Now, information is valuable. Preparation matters. Learning matters. But there comes a point where preparation becomes procrastination. The person keeps reading, keeps researching, keeps planning, keeps waiting. Months pass, years pass, nothing changes. The illusion is dangerous because it feels productive, yet no bridge was ever built entirely from blueprints. At some point, construction must begin. The same applies to wealth. You can study investing forever. Eventually, you must invest. You can study business forever. Eventually, you must build. You can study communication forever. Eventually, you must speak. Action transforms theory into reality. Without action, knowledge remains trapped. There is another excuse that quietly sabotages countless lives. Comparison disguised as self-doubt. People see someone further ahead and conclude they cannot compete. They see the finished product, not the unfinished beginning. They see mastery, not practice. They see confidence, not uncertainty. They see success, not struggle. Every expert was once inexperienced. Every leader was once unknown. Every successful person once stood exactly where you stand now, at the beginning. The difference is they continued. That is all. They continued when progress was invisible. Continued when doubts appeared. Continued when results arrived slowly. Continued when excuses offered easier alternatives. Persistence often looks ordinary. Its results look extraordinary. There is a powerful image worth carrying forward. Imagine standing at the edge of a forest. You can only see a few steps ahead. Not the entire path, not the final destination, just the next few steps. Most people refuse to move until they can see the entire journey. Life rarely works that way. Clarity often arrives through movement, not before movement. The path reveals itself as you walk. The business reveals itself as you build. The opportunity reveals itself as you engage. The confidence reveals itself as you act. Waiting for certainty often means waiting forever, because certainty is rarely available. What is available is progress, small progress, daily progress, consistent progress, and consistency changes identities. At first, you perform an action. Then the action becomes a habit. Then the habit becomes part of your character. A person saves consistently, they become a saver. A person learns consistently, they become a learner. A person builds consistently, they become a builder. Identity evolves through repetition, not declarations, not intentions, repetition. This is why the most powerful promises are often private, quiet promises, promises made to yourself, promises kept when nobody is watching. Those promises create self-respect. Self-respect creates confidence. Confidence creates courage. Courage creates action. Action creates outcomes. The chain begins with integrity, and integrity is built one decision at a time. There is another excuse hiding beneath many others. Fear of judgment. People worry about what others will think. What if I fail? What if people laugh? What if I look foolish? Yet consider this carefully. Most people are too busy thinking about themselves to spend much time thinking about you. The judgment we fear is often exaggerated by imagination. And even when criticism arrives, it usually changes very little. People talk, then they move on. Meanwhile, years can disappear while waiting for universal approval. Universal approval never arrives, nor should it. Innovation often looks strange at first. Growth often makes others uncomfortable. Ambition often confuses those who abandon their own ambitions. That is normal. The goal is not avoiding criticism. The goal is building something meaningful despite it. One of the greatest shifts in wealth creation occurs when external validation loses power, when applause becomes optional, when criticism becomes manageable, when purpose becomes stronger than opinion. That is freedom, real freedom, the freedom to pursue what matters without constantly seeking permission. And permission is something many people spend years waiting for. Permission from family, permission from friends, permission from society, permission from circumstances. But the truth is simple. The life you want may require self-authorization. The decision to begin before others understand. the decision to continue before others approve, the decision to trust your vision while it is still invisible. That is what builders do, not because they possess certainty, because they possess commitment. Commitment carries people further than confidence ever could. If a lesson in this chapter resonates with you, write down one excuse you're no longer willing to carry. Sometimes naming an excuse weakens its grip immediately. Now, we are entering a chapter that changes everything. Because once excuses lose power, attention shifts toward something far more important. Opportunity, not luck, not chance. Opportunity. The ability to recognize value where others see nothing. The ability to spot openings invisible to distracted minds. The ability to see the future before it becomes obvious. Because the people who build lasting wealth often share one extraordinary skill. They learn to see differently. And once you learn how they think, the world begins looking very different indeed. Chapter 11. Opportunity rarely arrives looking like opportunity. That is why most people miss it. They expect dramatic entrances, perfect timing, clear signs, certainty. Instead, opportunity often appears disguised as inconvenience, a problem nobody wants to solve, a challenge others avoid, a responsibility people complain about, a skill that takes time to develop, a market that seems too small, a conversation that feels uncomfortable, a risk that feels uncertain. Builders learn to see these moments differently. Where others see burden, they see possibility. Where others see complexity, they see value. Where others see obstacles, they see openings. That difference in perception creates extraordinary results over time. Think about some of the most successful businesses in the world. Many began by solving ordinary frustrations, transportation problems, communication problems, payment problems, information problems, convenience problems. The opportunity existed because a problem existed, and problems are everywhere, which means opportunities are everywhere. The challenge is awareness. Most people move through life reacting. Builders move through life observing. Observation creates insight. Insight creates ideas. Ideas create systems. Systems create value. Value creates wealth. The chain always begins with awareness. Imagine walking through your daily routine with a different question. Not what is wrong, but what could be improved. Not why is this difficult, but why does this difficulty exist? Not who should fix this, but how could this be solved? Those questions transform ordinary experiences into opportunities, because opportunity is often hidden inside inefficiency. A restaurant with slow service, a complicated process, a confusing product, a communication gap, a recurring frustration. Every one of these can become the foundation for value creation. And value creation remains the most reliable path toward lasting wealth. There is a fascinating truth about successful people. They tend to ask better questions, not because they possess all the answers, because questions direct attention. Attention directs discovery. Discovery creates advantage. The quality of your future is heavily influenced by the quality of the questions you ask today. Consider the difference between these two questions. Why does this always happen to me? And what can this teach me? The first creates victimhood, the second creates growth, or these. Why is success so difficult? Versus what skills would make success easier? One creates frustration, the other creates strategy. Questions matter. More than most people realize, they shape perception. Perception shapes behavior. Behavior shapes outcomes. This is why opportunity recognition is often a mental skill before it becomes a financial skill. You train yourself to notice, to observe, to remain curious. Curiosity is incredibly valuable. Curious people continue learning. Curious people adapt. Curious people discover. Curious people uncover possibilities invisible to those who assume they already know everything. That mindset becomes increasingly important in a rapidly changing world. The future rarely belongs to the most stubborn. It usually belongs to the most adaptable. Adaptability has become one of the greatest forms of wealth. Technology changes, markets evolve, consumer behavior shifts, entire industries transform. People who adapt remain relevant. People who remain relevant continue creating value. People who create value continue attracting opportunities. The pattern repeats. There is another important truth about opportunity. It often appears long before confidence does. A young creator may have an opportunity to share their work, but lack confidence. An aspiring entrepreneur may see an opportunity to solve a problem, but lack confidence. An employee may recognize a better approach, but lack confidence. If confidence were required before action, very little would ever happen. Confidence is usually the result of action, not the prerequisite. Builders understand this. They begin before they feel fully ready, not recklessly, not carelessly, courageously, because readiness is often discovered through movement. There is a story repeated across nearly every successful journey. The beginning looks smaller than expected. The first customer, the first follower, the first investment, the first project, the first sale, the first opportunity. Nothing looked impressive. Yet those small beginnings contained enormous potential, because small beginnings create momentum, and momentum changes everything. Most people underestimate the power of momentum because it feels insignificant when it starts. A train requires tremendous energy to begin moving. Once moving, maintaining momentum becomes far easier. Human progress works similarly. Starting is difficult. Continuing becomes easier. Stopping becomes costly. Momentum creates confidence. Confidence creates larger actions. Larger actions create larger opportunities. The cycle accelerates. This is why waiting for the perfect moment is such an expensive habit. Perfect moments rarely exist. Perfect moments are usually recognized only in retrospect. At the time, they often feel uncertain, ordinary, incomplete. The opportunity appears. The decision follows. The future unfolds. Only later does it become obvious how important that moment was. This is one reason successful people often develop a bias toward action. Not impulsive action, intentional action, because they understand something powerful. Opportunities expire, conversations end, markets change, windows close, life keeps moving, and movement rewards participants. There is another layer to opportunity that deserves attention. Sometimes the greatest opportunity is not outside you. It is inside you. An undeveloped skill, an unexplored talent, a neglected passion, a capability waiting for attention. Many people spend years searching externally for opportunities while ignoring internal potential. The future they want often requires becoming someone new. Not abandoning who they are, expanding who they are, learning, growing, developing. The investment with the highest potential return is often personal development, because every improvement affects everything else. Improved communication strengthens relationships. Improved discipline strengthens execution. Improved focus strengthens productivity. Improved thinking strengthens decisions. Improved decisions strengthen outcomes. The benefits compound. That is why builders never stop learning. Learning is leverage. Knowledge applied intelligently creates options, and options create freedom. Freedom remains one of the central themes of this audiobook, not because freedom means doing nothing. Freedom means choosing intentionally, choosing where you work, how you spend your time, who you spend it with, what projects matter, what values guide your life. Freedom is the ability to align your actions with your priorities. Money helps, systems help, assets help, but awareness comes first. Without awareness, opportunities remain invisible. Without awareness, value remains hidden. Without awareness, potential remains dormant. Awareness is where everything begins. If this chapter sparked a new perspective, share one opportunity you almost missed but are grateful you pursued. Those stories often remind others to trust their own instincts. Now, we are approaching one of the deepest lessons in this entire audiobook, a lesson that separates temporary success from lasting fulfillment. Because building wealth is important. Building freedom is important. Building assets is important. But eventually, a question emerges that changes everything. What is all of this actually for? Because the people who achieve the most meaningful success eventually discover something unexpected. Wealth alone is not enough. And in the next chapter, we're going to explore why purpose is the ultimate multiplier, why meaning matters more than most people realize, and why the richest life is often about far more than money. Chapter 12. There comes a moment in every meaningful journey when the numbers stop being enough, not because money loses value, because perspective expands. The person who once believed wealth would solve everything eventually discovers a deeper truth. Money solves money problems. It does not automatically solve life problems. And understanding that distinction may be one of the most important realizations a person can ever have. A larger bank account can create comfort. It can create options. It can create breathing room. Scarcity creates fear. Abundance creates possibility. And possibility fuels innovation. There is a beautiful paradox hidden inside wealth creation. The people most obsessed with money often struggle to find peace. The people most committed to creating value often attract opportunities because attention flows toward purpose. Purpose directs effort. Effort creates value. Value creates wealth. The sequence remains remarkably consistent. That does not mean purpose eliminates challenges. Far from it. Purpose often introduces bigger challenges, greater responsibility, higher expectations, larger goals. But those challenges feel different because they are connected to meaning. A meaningful burden is easier to carry than a meaningless one. A meaningful struggle strengthens. A meaningless struggle drains. That distinction matters, especially during difficult seasons. Every person listening to this audiobook will encounter difficult seasons, moments of uncertainty, moments of doubt, moments when progress feels slow. During those seasons, purpose becomes fuel, the reminder that the journey matters, that the effort matters, that the mission matters, and missions create resilience. If this chapter resonates deeply, consider reflecting on a simple question. What are you really building your life for? Not the answer others expect. Your answer, the honest one, because that answer may shape every decision that follows. Now we are approaching the final stages of this journey. We have explored money, systems, assets, psychology, opportunity, relationships, purpose. But there remains one final transformation, the shift from seeking wealth to becoming the kind of person capable of sustaining it. Because lasting wealth is never merely about what you possess. It is about who you become, and that is where our next chapter begins.